Elon Musk almost lost everything in 2008. 2 rockets had already exploded. Tesla was weeks from bankruptcy. His marriage was falling apart. He was sleeping on a friend's couch and putting his own money, the last of it, into 2 companies that every expert on the planet said were going to fail. Most people would have quit. Most people should have quit. But something in the way Musk processed that pain doesn't match the panic of a man watching his life burn down. It matches something older, something that has nothing to do with rockets or electric cars. It matches a philosophy written 2,000 years ago by a Roman emperor who buried his own children and still got up every morning to write about duty. If you've clicked on this video because you saw the title and thought, "There's no way Elon Musk actually studies Stoicism," you're about to find out you're both right and wrong. He's never once quoted Marcus Aurelius on stage. He's never called himself a Stoic. And yet, if you strip away the rockets and the headlines and just look at how the man actually thinks, you'll find Stoic philosophy running underneath almost every decision he's made in the last 20 years. Elon Musk's Stoicism philosophy isn't something he studied, it's something he stumbled into by accident, the same way anyone stumbles into a truth that's simply older than they are. This isn't a biography video. I'm not here to tell you about his childhood or list his companies like a Wikipedia page. This is about the mindset underneath the empire, the operating system running quietly behind every bet he's ever made. And by the end of this, you're going to see your own struggles differently. Let's start with the part nobody talks about. In 2001, before any of it, Musk pitched an idea to send a small greenhouse to Mars just to reignite public interest in space. He flew to Russia to buy a used ICBM to launch it. The Russians laughed him out of the room. Twice, he flew home on a 17-hour flight, and somewhere over the Atlantic, instead of grieving the idea, he did something the Stoics would have recognized immediately. He pulled out a spreadsheet and started calculating the raw material cost of a rocket. Aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, copper. He wasn't asking why did this fail. He was asking what is actually within my control right now. That single shift, from despair to calculation, is the entire foundation of Stoic thought. Epictetus, a man born into slavery who later became one of the most influential philosophers in Roman history, built his whole system around one idea: some things are up to us, and some things are not. The rocket engineers laughing at you in Moscow, not up to you. Whether you go build the damn thing yourself, entirely up to you. SpaceX was born on that flight home, not out of confidence, but out of a very cold, very stoic refusal to waste energy mourning what he couldn't change. You see this pattern again in 2008. The year that almost ended him. Falcon 1 failed on its first launch, then its second, then its third. 3 strikes, and SpaceX had almost no money left for a 4th attempt. At the same time, Tesla was burning cash faster than it could raise it. And the 2 failures were feeding off each other, dragging his personal finances down with them. He was, by his own later admission, at his lowest point. Friends worried he was suicidal. He wasn't crying about it publicly. He wasn't looking for sympathy. He was doing something almost inhuman in its discipline, waking up, doing the math again, and trying one more time. That's not blind optimism. Blind optimism gets crushed by a 3rd failed rocket launch. What kept Musk moving was closer to what Seneca described almost 2,000 years earlier. The idea that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and that a man who has already mentally rehearsed the worst outcome, financial ruin, public humiliation, total collapse, is far harder to break than a man who never considered it possible. There's a specific Stoic practice for this. It's called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. You sit with your worst-case scenario before it happens. You make peace with it, and suddenly it loses its power over you. Musk has said in interviews that he genuinely expected SpaceX to fail. He gave it maybe a 10% chance of ever working. He built the company already having grieved its death. That's not recklessness. That's a 2,000-year-old mental technique applied by a man who's never once called it by name. And this is where it gets interesting, because most people watching self-help content want the highlight reel. They want the six-figure exit, the rocket landing upright on the drone ship, the applause. Nobody wants to talk about the fourth launch attempt, the one where the company had exactly enough money left for one more try and nothing after that. But that fourth launch is the entire story. That's where the philosophy either holds or it doesn't. Falcon 1 flew successfully in September of 2008 on the fourth attempt with weeks of runway left. If it had failed, there is no SpaceX today. There is no Starlink connecting soldiers in war zones to the internet. There is no Falcon 9 landing itself back on a barge in the ocean like something out of science fiction. The entire trajectory of modern spaceflight sat balanced on a man's ability to keep showing up after being told no by reality itself, 3 separate times, in full public view, with his own money and his own name attached to the failure. That's the part of the story people skip. They want to talk about the billions. They don't want to talk about the version of Elon Musk who was one failed launch away from losing it all, calculating rocket fuel costs on a legal pad because he refused to accept that the story was already over. But here's what should actually unsettle you about this. If a man who says he's never read a page of Stoic philosophy can accidentally build an empire on its core principles just by refusing to give in to what he couldn't control, then the philosophy was never the hard part. The applying it was. And that's exactly where this gets personal, because the second half of Musk's mindset, the part that explains how he actually made decisions once the pressure was on, is far stranger and far more useful to you than anything you've heard so far. Here's the part most people get wrong about Elon Musk, and it's the part that actually matters if you're trying to build anything worth building. They think his edge is intelligence. It isn't. Plenty of brilliant engineers have watched their companies collapse. What Musk has, whether he knows the name for it or not, is a specific relationship with judgment itself, the ability to separate what a thing means from what a thing is. And that distinction, the space between an event and your reaction to it, is the entire engine room of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his private journal, a journal he never intended anyone to read, that sounds almost like it was written for a man running 2 companies on the edge of bankruptcy in 2008. He said that if you're distressed by anything external, the pain isn't due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it. And that judgment is something you have the power to revoke at any moment. Read that again slowly. The rocket exploding isn't what hurts you. Your story about what the exploding rocket means for your future, that's what hurts you. And you can put that story down. Watch how this plays out in Musk's actual behavior. When a Falcon 9 exploded on the launch pad in 2016, destroying a satellite worth roughly $200 million, most CEOs would have gone into full crisis mode, defensive statements, blame shifting, damage control theater. Musk tweeted that it was, in his words, the most difficult and complex failure they'd ever had in 15 years. Then he did something almost clinical. He opened an investigation. He wanted the raw data, not the narrative. He wanted to know exactly what happened, physically, mechanically, without any of the emotional noise wrapped around it. That's not coldness for the sake of looking tough. That's a man instinctively refusing to let his judgment about the failure become bigger than the failure itself. This is where Elon Musk's Stoicism philosophy becomes something you can actually use, not just admire from a distance. Because most people don't fail at big dramatic moments. They fail in the small ones. The email that stings, the meeting that goes sideways, the launch, whatever your launch looks like, that quietly fizzles while nobody's watching. And in that moment, the ordinary brain does what it's built to do. It turns the event into a verdict. This happened, therefore I am something. I am incapable. I am behind. I am out of time. The Stoic move, the one Musk seems to make instinctively under enormous pressure, is to refuse the verdict and keep the data. Something happened. Fine. What does it mean for the next decision? Not for your identity, for the next decision. There's a story from inside Tesla's early days that illustrates this almost perfectly, and it rarely gets told the way it should. In 2018, Tesla was in what insiders called production hell, trying to hit a target of building 5,000 Model 3 cars a week when the company had never come close to that pace. Musk was reportedly sleeping on the factory floor, not metaphorically, literally sleeping next to the production line, because he refused to manage the crisis from a comfortable distance. That decision alone tells you something the Stoics understood 2,000 years before automated assembly lines existed. Proximity to the problem is a form of discipline. You don't get to have opinions about the fire from across the street. You go stand in it. Seneca wrote to a friend once about the difference between a life protected from hardship and a life trained by it, comparing untested men to soldiers who've never seen combat, brave in theory, untested in practice. He argued that adversity is the only thing that actually reveals what a person is made of, and that the Stoics deliberately sought out discomfort, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because comfort makes you soft in exactly the moment you can least afford softness. Musk seems to operate on a version of this instinct that borders on obsessive. 80, 90, occasionally over 100 hours a week during crisis periods, not because he romanticizes exhaustion, but because he seems to genuinely believe that avoiding the hard thing now guarantees a harder thing later. That belief, uncomfortable as it is, sits at the absolute center of Stoic thought. Voluntary hardship. Choosing the difficult path before circumstance forces it on you, because the muscle you build in the choosing is the same muscle that saves you when you don't get a choice anymore. Now here's where this gets uncomfortable for anyone watching this and thinking about their own life, their own business, their own stalled goal that's been sitting untouched for months. Because it's easy to watch a billionaire sleep on a factory floor and think, well, he had the resources to gamble like that. He had a cushion. But that's not actually where his edge came from. His edge came from a decision made years earlier in a cheap apartment, calculating rocket costs on a spreadsheet after being laughed out of a room in Moscow. The cushion came after the mindset, not before it. People get that order backwards constantly. They wait to feel secure before they act with discipline, when the entire historical pattern, Musk included, runs the opposite direction. There's a colder, more practical piece of this too, one that doesn't get romanticized in interviews. Musk has talked about applying what he calls first principles thinking, breaking a problem down to its most basic physical truths, and rebuilding from there instead of reasoning by analogy to what's already been done. It sounds like an engineering technique, It's actually a philosophical one. The Stoics called it a similar thing when they talked about examining an impression closely before accepting it, refusing to take a belief at face value just because it's common, popular, or comfortable. Everyone in the aerospace industry accepted that rockets cost what they cost. Musk refused the premise entirely and asked what the raw materials actually cost, stripped of assumption. That single refusal to accept an inherited belief is Stoic skepticism wearing an engineer's uniform. What you're watching, when you watch Musk operate under pressure, isn't confidence. Confidence is fragile. It cracks the moment reality disagrees with it. What you're watching is something closer to acceptance, an almost eerie willingness to let the worst-case scenario exist in his mind without flinching from it, so that when it doesn't happen, everything feels like a bonus, and when it does happen, he's already lived there once before. And that raises the real question this video has been building toward. If a man can accidentally construct this entire mental framework without ever opening a page of Marcus Aurelius, what does that tell you about the people who have access to this wisdom directly, deliberately, and still don't use it? Here's the question that should actually keep you up tonight, not because it's about Elon Musk, but because it's about you. If ancient philosophy can accidentally build a rocket company, what's stopping deliberate philosophy from building whatever you're trying to build? Because here's what nobody tells you about Stoicism when they package it into 10-second clips of cold showers and blunt quotes. It was never a productivity hack. It was a survival system, built by people who had actual reasons to fall apart. Marcus Aurelius wrote his private notebook, the one we now call Meditations, during military campaigns, while his empire was hemorrhaging from war and plague at the same time, while he was grieving children he'd buried in his own lifetime. Epictetus built his philosophy after being enslaved and, according to some accounts, permanently injured by a master who broke his leg. Seneca wrote his calmest letters on discipline and mortality, while living under an emperor who would eventually order his death, a sentence Seneca is said to have accepted with more composure than most people show over a late flight. None of these men were untouched by suffering. They built their entire framework from inside it. And that's exactly why it still works 2,000 years later on a man who's never read a word of it directly. The philosophy doesn't require belief. It only requires practice. So let's make this practical, because admiration without application is just entertainment, and you didn't come here to be entertained. The first move, the one that got SpaceX off the ground in the first place, was separating the outcome from the effort. Musk didn't control whether Russia sold him a rocket. He controlled whether he built one himself. In your life, right now, there is almost certainly something you've been treating as one giant, uncontrollable problem, when really it's a stack of small, controllable decisions wearing a scary costume. Break it down the way he broke down a rocket. What's the raw material of your problem? Not the story about it. The actual, physical, controllable parts. The second move is premeditatio malorum, sitting with your worst-case scenario before it arrives, instead of flinching from it every time it crosses your mind. Musk has said plainly that he expected SpaceX to fail, that he gave it something like a 1 in 10 chance of success, and built the company anyway with that number fully priced in. Most people avoid this exercise because it feels like inviting disaster. It's the opposite. A feared thing examined closely almost always shrinks. A feared thing avoided grows in the dark, unchallenged, until it's bigger than the actual risk ever was. Sit with your worst outcome for 5 honest minutes today, not spiraling, just looking at it directly. You'll notice it has less power, once you've actually looked it in the eye. The third move is proximity to the problem, the factory floor instinct. Musk didn't manage Tesla's production crisis from a boardroom. He put himself physically inside the failure until he understood it well enough to fix it. Most people manage their problems from a safe emotional distance, reading about them, talking about them, worrying about them, without ever getting close enough to actually solve them. Whatever your version of the factory floor is, your business's weakest number, the conversation you've been avoiding, the skill you keep meaning to build, proximity is the discipline. Go stand in it. And the fourth move, maybe the most stoic of all, is refusing to let a single event become a verdict on who you are. A failed launch is a failed launch. It is not proof that you're incapable. A hard year is a hard year. It is not a life sentence. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events, and that realizing this, truly realizing it, is where strength begins. That sentence is not a productivity quote. It's a survival instruction, written by a man who buried his own children and still had an empire to run the next morning. This is the part where the Elon Musk story stops being about Elon Musk. Because the honest truth is, most of us will never build a rocket company. Most of us will never carry the weight he's carried or take the risks he's taken. And that's fine. That was never the point of this video. The point is that the operating system underneath his decisions, calculate what you control, rehearse the worst before it happens, get close to your problems instead of managing them from a distance, and refuse to let a bad outcome define your identity. None of that requires billions of dollars or a rocket company to use. It requires a decision. The same decision a broke man made on a 17-hour flight home from Moscow, staring at a spreadsheet instead of staring at his failure. Elon Musk's Stoicism philosophy was never something he sat down and studied from a textbook. It was something he built by refusing, over and over, at the exact moments it would have been easiest to quit. To let circumstances write the ending before he'd finished the story. That's not a coincidence. That's a 2,000-year-old pattern, showing up again in a man who probably doesn't even realize he's living inside it. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of this entire story. If the philosophy works this well by accident, imagine what happens the day you stop leaving it to accident. Imagine what happens the day you actually decide, on purpose, the way the Stoics did, the way Musk stumbled into doing, to stop reacting to your life and start choosing your response to it instead. That decision doesn't require a rocket company. It doesn't require a factory floor. It requires you, right now, closing this video with one thing decided differently than when you opened it. So decide it. If this changed the way you think about pressure, about failure, about what it actually takes to keep going when the odds are stacked against you, don't let it end here. Hit like so this reaches someone else who needs to hear it today. Share it with the one person in your life who's in their own version of 2008 right now, sleeping on a friend's couch, betting everything on something everyone else has already written off. And subscribe to Stoic Founder, because this is exactly the kind of thinking we dig into every single week, the philosophy behind the people who refuse to quit. Because somewhere out there, right now, someone is one decision away from their own Falcon 1 moment. Make sure it's you.